The goal is to have a very high-quality institution. High-quality institutions require that we have the very best faculty. They require that we have the very best facilities that one could put in place, and there are costs associated with that. Traditionally, those costs were borne by, in very significant part, by the citizens of the state through paying tax dollars that were then used to support the institution. As we increasingly turn to our students and the parents of students and their families to provide the dollars that support the institution, I worry a great deal about the access and the limits that creates for access to those who would come here. I don't think a society can long prosper where only a small portion of the citizens can continue to participate in higher education because of the cost of doing that. There's intellect in every corner of the state. There's intellect within every population, every group within the state. And if we don't have ways of developing that intellect and allowing it to come forward to contribute to the richness of the state and the success of the state and nation, we can only be impoverished by that. Early in our history, actually someone handed me the minutes of the Board of Trustees from 1868, and listed in there was the first class at the University of Illinois. There were no women in that class. It was an all-male class. And if you think about that, we were depriving ourselves of access to half of the intellectual capacity of the state. It wasn't that many years later that the University of Illinois broadened its admissions policy to include young women, and I think that was an enormous step forward. I worry today that not by gender and not by race are we limiting access, but simply by cost we limit access. And how do we deal with that? Well, I think that's an issue that the leadership in our state needs to think very, very about. Some of you were at the Board of Trustees meeting last week, and you heard the numbers, but I'll just repeat some of them. The state has a projected budget deficit for this next year to $14 or $15 million. Randy Kangas is here from the President's office. Randy, if I get a number wrong, you'll correct me. If it's worse, don't say anything. If it's smaller number, please tell us the good news. It's 14 to 15. Some accounts show 13. Randy, that's about right. Significant part of that is about $4 billion is state pension system obligations. It's said that we have the most underfunded pension system in the nation. And it's a challenge to think of how the state walks away from that, because these were commitments made to employees current and past there were terms of the contract, terms of the agreement of what one's compensation both during their working career and retirement would be. As you know, a couple of years ago the state borrowed $3 billion to keep the pension system afloat. Those obligations will come due. The debt has to be repaid. There's a cash deficit. We believe today there's about $6 billion in unpaid bills that the state of Illinois has. Among those, of course, you read about this campus has receivables now to the state in excess of $250 million. This university, not just this campus. We're roughly, Randy, about half of the overall university budget. That's correct. So the state owes the University of Illinois $250 million, and then we're about half of that. We continue to make payroll, and we continue to make payroll because money gets moved from one place to another, and we borrow against accounts where there are dollars. But the reality is we can't go on in that circumstance forever. Eventually, those accounts have to be replenished. General tax revenue is down about 15% from where it was at its height. That points directly to the fact that the state has lost over 400,000 jobs in the current recession. These were people who were employed, and out of their paychecks every week, every 2 weeks, or every month would come a portion that would go into the state's income tax and sales tax revenues. And as they're not employed, those dollars are not coming in, but more importantly, those individuals turn to state's services to support some of their needs, which further challenges the problem. Last year, for 2 years, last year we had about $2 billion in federal stimulus dollars. Those are going away. They won't be there next year. Our bond rating is gone down precipitously as a state. That means when the state does go into the market to borrow money, it costs more, which adds to the problem. We're an unattractive place to do business. I think our current ranking among the 50 states is something like 45 in terms of our position as a place where companies might want to come and establish a business. Well, what do? Well, the notion is that we could raise taxes, and that certainly will be part of a solution, I believe. But will it be enough to close the gap? Well, a number that would be enough to close the gap, I think, would be a very, very difficult number for most of us as individuals to deal with. Can there be pension reform? I think that's something the legislature has grappled with. There was a small modification of the pension system this last session, and there will undoubtedly be additional conversations as we go forward. Health programs for retirees, other things that might be done. The next legislature, the next governor have some very real challenges to grapple with. And as they discuss those challenges, I truly hope that they will also understand the importance of having a very, very strong system of higher education in the state. What does the state currently contribute to our budget? Well, the number that you often hear is about 17%, and that's a number that's not quite accurate. It's really closer to 30%. The 17% relates to our direct operational cost, the cost of paying individual salaries, the cost of operating the university. But there are additional benefits paid in kind, the pension system that I mentioned a moment ago, health care, which also the state provides, are additional costs. So the true contribution is probably closer to 30%. The scholarship programs, the MAP program, which was part of the discussion last year, is in addition to that. Other ways that the state provides funding to us through grants and other types of support is significant. We sometimes hear the question asked, why can't we just become a private university? That would be absolutely something that I would walk away from. I truly believe in public education. I truly believe in access and affordable education. But even for us to think of replacing what the state currently provides to us, even in these difficult circumstances,